Hi class, today we're going to be looking at Chapter 5, the Cumulative Software Program Problem for ProConnect. So if you'll hold on just a minute, I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm in ProConnect now, and what you want to do is click on View Returns, because as you remember, this return that we've been working on for the first 4 chapters is Gator Albert, or Albert Gator's form. So you'll want to make sure that you're in 2019 at the top of ProConnect, and make sure you click on Gator, Albert Gator. And this is going to bring up the information that we've already done in chapters 1 through 4. So for today in chapter 5, we're going to learn how to do itemized deductions, and we're also going to learn to adjust some of your income. So what you'll want to do is when you get to this menu, you want to click on deductions. And when you do that, first of all, we're going to click on adjustments to income and do it first, because under deductions, we haven't talked about depreciation yet. And so we're going to go straight to adjustments to income. So I'm going to click on that. And it's going to bring up for you some tabs. Notice the tabs at the top are for retirement, health insurance, education, and less common scenarios. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we read our problem carefully. What in the problem for chapter 5, you'll notice that it tells you right toward the end of the problem, in the second to the last paragraph, it says for the 2019 tax year, on April the 15th, 2020, Albert contributes $6,000 to a traditional IRA for himself and $6,000 to a traditional IRA for his wife. And so what we want to do is make sure that you have clicked on the retirement tab, and what will come up is traditional IRA. And so what you'll want to do is just enter in the information that was given in your cumulative software problem. So the taxpayer, who was Albert, contributed $6,000 to his traditional IRA, and his spouse also contributed $6,000 to the IRA. In this problem, the only other thing that we need to look at is some adjustments to our income for our educational expenses. So I'm going to click on education expense, and notice what comes up. Total qualified student loan interest that was paid. So if you are paying any interest back to a college for student loans, then you're going to record it right here. And so in your problem, in the information that's given, they said that the interest on Albert's college loan is $3,125. So you're just going to write it here. Now, that's the only 2 adjustments that we need to make for this particular problem. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at itemized deductions, because they also talk about in this chapter what to do if you are deciding to itemize your deductions. You'll remember, if your deductions are more, your itemized deductions are more than your standard deduction, then it's better to itemize, because it'll give you a little bit more off of your taxes. And so I clicked on itemized deductions, which is also Schedule A, that you're going to be preparing in this problem. Notice the tabs changed. We've got medical deductions that we're going to be working on. We've got some taxes that we could possibly deduct that we might be working on, interest that we possibly could deduct, and contributions. And then there's a tab for miscellaneous and other types of deductions that you don't know where to put in either of these 4 tabs. Now, in your problem, they gave you a lot of things that you could look at to see if you could deduct that. And we're going to start with the medical deduction. So in your problem, look through the list to see where you might have some medical deductions. First of all, we're going to look for prescription medicines and drugs. And so we do have some prescription medication and drugs. The total amount is $1903. So I entered that in there. If you had several prescriptions, you could expand and you can record all your prescriptions here. So you might want to do them one at a time to keep up with them, whatever's best for you and your client to be able to tell, what the amount is. But in this particular problem, they just called it prescriptions and medications, and the amount was given at $1903. So you type this in, and then when you hit OK, it will put this in for you automatically. So remember, you need to expand the box by clicking over toward the right-hand side. You'll get a plus sign where it says expand details. And when you click on that, you can see where the details are. Record the amount for this prescription, click OK. And then we'll move to the next category, which is any money that you might have spent for your doctor's, dentist, or nursing care. And so you'll notice my little box here has 3 because that's what I recorded. I'm going to click on that box so I can show you each one individually. Allison evidently had to have some psychotherapy. So what we're going to do is we're going to record that she had to have psychotherapy, and this was the amount that you spent on her psychotherapy. Also, I went ahead and put eyeglasses for Crocker, $413. These are prescription eyeglasses, and I don't know, I don't think it'd make any difference if you put them under prescriptions, but I just chose to put it here. It's $413. Those are deductible. And also in the additional information in this problem, there's a paragraph that says in August of 2019, Crocker was out of town on a field trip with the university band and his appendix burst. And so he had to go into surgery, which was considered out of network for Gator's health plan, so the health insurance didn't cover it. And the doctor's fees were $31.50. So surgery for his appendix burst is the description I wrote down. The doctor's fees were $31.50. Since this says doctors, dentists, and nurses, these were unreimbursed because the insurance didn't take care of it. And so I just recorded all 3 of these separate. When you add them up, it comes up to a total of $58.61. So I'm going to click OK, and you'll notice it puts that total in for you. So again, I had 3 different items that I added in here for a total of $58.61. Another part to that appendix operation said that in addition, Allison, his wife, drove 300 miles round trip to be with Crocker after the surgery and drive him home after he recovered. And she spent 2 nights in a hotel at a cost of $140 per night. So I want you to realize that that is something that we can deduct. So you want to read through these kind of things to see if anything applied to yours. So I'm going to go down here where it says lodging and transportation. And right here, I've got out-of-pocket expenses. And again, I'm going to expand on this box to make it larger. And I recorded the hotel cost for the appendix burst. Notice I recorded $100. Now you have to know the tax rules, and the tax rules are stated in this chapter about hotel cost for out-of-pocket medical expenses. And so they limit you to $50 per night. And since this Allison stayed 2 nights in a hotel, the total of 50 times 2 is $100. That's all we're able to deduct for that. So you're limited on your hotel cost. And so it's $50 per night. Since there were 2 nights, 50 times 2 is $100. That's the amount we would record for the out-of-pocket expenses for the hotel cost. Also down here, notice it's got a place for medical miles driven. And so again, you can expand the box. And what I did is I put in the description 300 miles. And the amount, now this is kind of confusing to me, but this is the only way I could get it to show that it was 300 miles. So I don't really think that needs to be amount there. I think this is supposed to be miles. But again, I caution you on this, but this, when I put it in as 300, it worked for me. So this should be miles that we're talking about here, because I wanted it to show here the miles that were driven. Now the tax law states that you could get 20 cents per mile for driving those medical miles. The medical rate is 20 cents a mile. You didn't have to put in that 20 cents per mile because ProConnect will do that for you. So what I wanted it to show was the number of miles driven, which is 300. And so that's all of the medical items that we had for this particular problem. So I'm going to move to the next category and see if we've got anything for taxes. So click on the taxes tab, and up will come things about taxes. Now, what I did notice in here was that in the information to the problem, it says there's actual state sales tax, including sales tax on a new automobile for 2000. The total amount was $3202, which is deductible. So I'm going to look for a good place to put that. And the only place that I found that I could put that was down here under sales taxes. And right here where it says use taxes paid on 2019 purchases, we know that we're paying the sales tax on the automobile. And then there's some other sales tax that we have recorded too. So I expanded my box and I wrote in auto sales tax was 2000 because they told you that. And other state sales tax would be 1,202. I got that by subtracting 2,000 from the total amount given at 3,202. So I wanted this total to be 3,202 like they have in your textbook. Click OK. And that's what we would record for our sales tax. Now in the problem, they also said that you had some property taxes. So I'm going to look for my real estate taxes or my property taxes just by scrolling on down. Here's rent, principal residence, which would be my home property tax. And you want to click on the button to expand it. And then you'll write in there that it's home property tax, the amount of $4,888, and just click OK. And that was all of the taxes that we had. So we're going to go to the next tab, which is interest. We can deduct some items for interest. If you've got mortgage interest, we definitely can deduct that. And on page 5-62 of your text, the instructions, they give you a mortgage interest statement. And that mortgage interest statement said that you had 11,345 in there. And we'll click on that. And notice I put in the payee's name and the information about the payee, his address, zip, and the amount here. So I got it described for you that it was home mortgage interest, and that's where I placed that. And so I put it there. And that's the only place I need to put the amount of the interest for the mortgage. Now, there was some other interest that I thought was kind of interesting, and that would have been, there's an additional interest for like investment interest expense on the stock margin account. I had to find a place to put that, and the amount was $345 according to your textbook. And so down here under investment interest, I clicked on the box to expand it, and I wrote in interest on stock margin account, and the amount of interest was $345. And that is your interest. And that was all of the interest, but you could look at all this and see if there was anything else that you need to put in here. And then we're going to move to, because that was all the interest that we had, we're going to move to contributions. All right, and on the contributions, we had some cash contributions. According to your problem, you had some cash contributions to the Catholic Church. And again, you can click on the button to expand it, and it gives you a place to write it down. The Catholic Church was this church name at $510, and that was all the cash donations that we had. But we did have some non-cash donations, and the non-cash donations were the clothes that we gave to the Salvation Army. So if you just scroll on down, there's a place for non-cash contributions. And I put that in the first box here. And you could put Salvation Army. Or you could even put clothes. Good clothes, because it needs to be in good condition for you to be able to take that deduction. And you tell it okay. And that is your non-cash deductions. And so we only had 2 of those. It was to the church for cash deductions, and to the non-cash deductions, you would put that in down here under non-cash deductions. All right, and so we're going to move to miscellaneous and other. So these are the ones that you kind of had left over that you really didn't have a place to put before. And one of the things that you can take is if you take your taxes to a preparer and they charge you, you can take that as an itemized deduction. And this person charged $765. You can expand the box there, and you could told where it came from, and that was CPA charges for last year's return. And it's $765. Also, you can deduct the safe deposit box storage, which was $100, excuse me. And again, you could put a description there, a safe deposit box. You could put where you had it at, you know, where its location is or whatever. And the other thing that we had that we could take was the gambling losses. Notice that goes under other itemized deductions, gambling losses. We can deduct gambling losses to the extent of the winnings. And you'll remember that he won some at gambling. And so the amount of that was $4,500. Okay, so gambling losses. It's in the additional information. Oh, actually, it's the last paragraph. Albert managed to gather his gambling loss documentation. It was 4502. And so we put that there. And basically that's it for the problem. We've taken all of our deductions. We've looked at putting in amounts for the IRA, which went under adjustments to income, and also there was another adjustment to income that we recorded. And I'll just click on it because my memory's failing me right now, but we already talked about it. Certainly was the IRA contributions. That was education. And this was the amount of student interest that is deductible. Now, you don't have to remember the rules for student interest, but you know, if you read your textbook, you'll know it's limited to $2,500, but ProConnect will do that for you. So I wanted to mention that too. And then that would be all of it. And so the last thing that you would need to do is to file your return. You could check it if you wanted to. Create a PDF. Download the return. And then there it is. And so you want to save it and then upload it to Blackboard. So that's all I want to talk to you about today. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.